Once again, here to cover another Tiger Cats victory. Woo! Another win over the Toronto Argonauts. This review is a little bit late because, unfortunately, I did not get to watch the game live. I was busy. But I did get to watch the game afterwards via the PVR. Not my ideal way of watching because inevitably the result gets spoiled and you wind up in this weird area where you lose objectivity when you know that they're going to win. You're not looking at the way that they won so much. So this will be for a win, a very critical review because I watched this game really looking for potential problems for the Cats. And I did definitely find some. Specifically, we have some injury trouble, which we're going to talk about. And they have done some things to fix. But on the whole, this was a pretty solid game. Now let's get into it. The Ticats defeated the Toronto Argonauts 36-25 in this Labor Day rematch, outscoring them in every quarter, not trailing really in any significant way at any point. Always nice. Bringing in. It wasn't as good as the Labor Day game. The offense wasn't as effective. The defense wasn't as effective. Bethel Thompson much better game. Not a great game, but he did go 27-42 for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception after being held down to less than 50% completion rating. Less than 200 yards. So, a notably better game for him. And, this is an interesting year for the Toronto Argonauts who, with the loss of Ricky Ray, the failure of the James Franklin experiment, you're kind of willing to give Mark Trestman the bye here in terms of that. There's a lot of tumultuousness there. You got to think that next season, the pressure's going to be on Trestman. Success as a head coach in professional football has largely been tailed to some of the greatest running backs or some of the greatest quarterbacks around. Of course, with his major success with the Montreal Alouettes, with Anthony Calvillo for obvious reasons and being a quarterback coach elsewhere. And then obviously Ricky Ray last season. And then, of course, there was the struggles with the Chicago Bears not being able to really generate a great offense in Baltimore as well, that you have to start asking the question of how much of his reputation has been inflated by that quarterbacking blessing. That thing that any offensive coach would love to have gone from Anthony Calvillo to Ricky Ray in terms of quarterbacking, and his success without that level of QB has been limited. So I'm not saying that Mark Trestman is not a good coach. He certainly is a good coach, but in terms of great stratosphere of the Wally Buonos and Don Matthews of the CFL, I'm not entirely sold. The next season's going to tell a lot about that. But enough about the Argos. Let's talk about the Ticats. Jeremiah Masoli had an economical performance. Not tremendously great. 307 yards for a guy who has been routinely throwing over 300 and even 400 yards is not particularly amazing. 18-25 completion rating, though, but 72% completion rating, 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. That's the big one because, of course, he's had that penchant for not finishing drives with touchdowns and giving up key interceptions at times. And he learned to throw the ball away in this game 1 or 2 times. That's a lot of progress, actually, in the areas where Masoli does need work. I was one of the guys who's always been in Mazzoli's corner. When Zach Collaros was struggling, I wanted to see Mazzoli play. When they brought in Manziel, I thought that was absolutely ridiculous to be calling for Manziel to start ahead of Mazzoli. And I was very confrontational and aggressive with the fans of Johnny Manziel. And if I may be honest here, I think there's a bit of indication for me with the performance of Montreal in the post-Johnny Manziel injury era, because Antonio Pipkin's done a lot with that team, and I don't think anyone's really talking about Antonio Pipkin as a revolutionary or great quarterback. So if all Montreal needed was a great quarterback who was going to light it up and Johnny Manziel was that guy, I would say we can distractedly say no. But again, we're talking about another team. Let's bring it back to the Ticats. So I think Jeremiah Masoli is the guy. I don't think that there's a backup quarterback in the league that is better than him, which I think was the key when people are talking about him not being starter caliber and not being the guy to bring in. the question always was, who do you bring in outside of another starter? Like, sure, if you gave me the option to bring in Bo Levi Mitchell to replace Jeremiah Masoli at the same contract rate and so on, I absolutely would. He is not the best quarterback in the league. But to say that there's more than maybe 2 to 4 quarterbacks in the league better than him, I think would be kind of misleading yourself, because right now I think that realistically, I think he's third best QB in the league if you discount Ricky Ray, who's more or less done. If you want to count Ricky Ray, all right, fine, we'll go Ricky Ray, Bo Levi Mitchell, Mike Riley. But after that, you could seriously put Mazzoli in that 4 hole, because, I mean, are you going with Matt Nichols, Jonathan Jennings, Travis Lulay, Trevor Harris, Bethel McLeod, or McLeod Bethel Thompson? I don't think so. So that's just my little rant on that regard. I guess you could go Zach Collaros, but he's been so hurt and not hard to really look at that in a serious light. I mean, let's see here. Let's have a look here. League leaders in passing. Let's just see what it's. You got Mike Riley, you got Mazzoli, you got Bo Levi, Trevor Harris, and then no one else is really in the same boat. Not taking Mazzoli over. Sure, Zach Collaros this season struggling. Played 7 games, 119 of 189, averaging about 200 yards a game, roughly 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. It's nothing spectacular there. Yeah, he had 2 amazing seasons when he came to Hamilton. And even the 2016 season, of course, where he got hurt, is also a great season. But 2017 to 2018 have really got to make you reevaluate that. Moving down on the Ticats roster here in this game, Alex Green leading the rushing attack, of course, with 13 carries for 60 yards. Not a lot. I would have liked to see a little bit more out of Alex Green. Masoli also ran 8 times for 51 yards. No rushing touchdowns in this game. Through the air. Now, this is the concern if you're a Ticat fan, I think, because Chris Williams has gone down with a season-ending injury. Jalen Saunders has gone down with a season-ending injury. We now know that Brandon Banks has an injured groin. The severity is not yet clear, but you've got, man, the spread on the receiving yards here is not great. You have 6 catches, 153, 2 touchdowns to Brandon Banks, 7 catches, 91 yards, touchdown to Luke Tasker, 3 catches, 44 yards, 1 touchdown to Alex Green, 34 yards of that coming on the touchdown, catch and run. Mike Jones, 2 catches for 19 yards. Terrence Tolliver, nothing. Rashard Lawrence, nothing. That concerns the absolute hell out of me when you consider that we're now, getting really, really problematic here, because, I mean, Banks may not play next week. And at that point, I mean, whoa. We're talking about a team that outside of Luke Tasker today and Brandon Banks had 5 catches for 63 yards. That's it's alarming. Now, I don't believe it's a quality of the receiver issue. I do believe that Terrence Tolliver is a quality receiver. I believe Mike Jones can do some things. We have signed Marquay McDaniel, who's getting a bit long in the tooth, but still definitely has the ability to run a route and the ability to bring the ball in. But Mazzoli, throughout this season, even when the receiving core has been healthy, it's varied who it is on a night-to-night basis. It could be Banks and Saunders. It could be Banks and Tasker. It could be Saunders and Tasker. But he tends to zero in on 2-3 receivers tops on a nightly basis. So that's, I think, the next stage. We've seen him throw the ball away, make better decisions, avoid those costly turnovers, finish drives. Now he needs to be a bit more distributive with the ball, because that has been a weak spot really throughout his entire career. So here's hoping. Moving on past that, though, Braylon Addison was our new kick returner guy, with the injuries piling up at the position as well. Had 5 punt returns for 55 yards and 3 kickoff returns for 48 yards. Not bad. Solid numbers. We'll see. It's too early to really tell what he's got for us, but there is that. And then on the defensive side of the ball, some other concerns here. Richard Leonard still has not returned, or Richard Leonard is still not returned. I don't know why I always want to say Richard. Richard Leonard has not returned to the starting lineup. That's concerning. Frank Williams went down in this game. led the team with 7 tackles along with Jamal Roll. So with those two guys potentially out, Delvin Breaux was back. That's a big deal. So you still do have Breaux and a very solid playing Jamal Roll and a Cariel Brooks who had a very good game as well. Presumably it will be Josh Johnson if Leonard is not able to go and if Williams is not able to go. Presumably it would be Josh Johnson would move in that role. And we've been seeing a lot of Josh Johnson lately because of these injuries, and he's done a pretty good job. So you got to feeling better about that than the possible loss of Banks, and not even from a standpoint of, obviously Brandon Banks is a more valuable team than Frankie Williams is or Richard Leonard is, but it does feel like we've got some depth in the secondary. Although earlier this season Mario Cooper had some problems, so we'll definitely be waiting with bated breath to get those two guys back in the lineup and really thicken up that second. Other than that, we had Cariel Brooks, as I mentioned, 6 tackles with 1 interception, 4 tackles for both Mike Gailey and Larry Dean. The linebacking core has been fantastic. This was not one of their better games with just 10 tackles, but they do their job, get it done. The concern continues to be the lack of sacks. We were once again held without a sack in this game, and keep in mind the defensive line has been utterly ineffective at getting pressure. Our best pass rusher has been inside guy Ted Laurent, who also went down in this game with an injury. So there's a lot of questions there because, of course, over the last couple of seasons, we have liquidated a lot of actually pretty solid non-import tackles. Amongst them, Michael Atkinson, Evan Gill, and Lyndon Gadosh. And now we might be paying for that a little bit because with Justin Vaughn hurt, and if Laurent is hurt on a permanent level or this time, you're looking at Brett Wade as the starting defensive tackle or reconfiguring yourself to include a Canadian elsewhere and going with what I imagine would be Jason Neal and Nikita Whitlock. Now, you could do that because, of course, you do have Courtney Stephen on the bench, and he's a fantastic non-import option in the secondary that can work in there. You also have Jackson Bennett, who I think has played very, very well. Now, mind you, I think Bennett is currently listed as injured, but he's been injured without being injured. He's been kind of that guy, we'll move him to happen. So let's have a quick look here. Jackson Bennett and Julian Hauscher currently are on the 1-game injured list, so they could be back at any time. That may be nothing. Chambers, Brett Golden, John Green, Jalen Saunders, Vaughn, and Chris Williams, with the unknowns of Ted Laurent, Frankie Williams, Brandon Banks for the next game. That's tough to kind of see your way around. Marquay McDaniel's now on the practice roster. Mario Cooper's injury more or less healed up, so there's that going for us. And of course, we have the guys who I'm kind of excited to see what they can do. These linemen we brought in Kelvin Palmer and so Sami Fassien. Know how to say that name? Please tell me because I would like to know. Because I have been banging the drum that Avery Jordan has not been particularly solid at left tackle, and he was better this game. I want to make that clear. I think he is actually coming along, but I think having the pressure does immense things. When you're the only option really at a position, it's never really a great thing. As a 1, there's no injury redundancy there, but 2, there's no pressure to really perform at a high level, and guys, and I think will help with that. Our new quarterback in Devontae Kincaid. I hope he is our planned third man because Brian Monitz, who's holding the job right now, is not a pro-level quarterback. And that's just really all there is to it. Like, I know, okay, it's a third stringer. Quite often that's not going to be a tremendously exciting player that you want to see play. But he's been around long enough that I think, and it's not super great way. So So, aside from the injury bug, what do we got going on here? The lack of pressure on the passer. Everything else is pretty good, actually. The line has been developing some more time for Jeremiah Masoli as of late. I said Avery Jordan has played better. I think Darius Shirako, who's another guy under fire, has also played a fair bit better as well last couple of games. So I think that helps a lot. Keeping the run game involved, obviously, is a big part of that. It takes a lot of the pressure off the line. And it was something that we went away from with Ken Austin, and we have gone away with from June Jones at times as well. Good to see that still being a part of the game, even if I would like to see a little bit more rushing in this particular game. Still, is really good because with the Ottawa Red Blacks losing as well, Hamilton has pretty much moved to the top of the Eastern Conference, or the Eastern Division. I mean, yes, 6-5, 6-5. Ottawa has the tiebreaker because they did beat us, but you got to feel the momentum is very much on the Ticats side right now, and it's not on the side of the Ottawa Red Blacks in any way. So that helps a ton. Now, we've got 7 games left in the season. Our magic number at this point is 4 to clinch a playoffs. Toronto, and that will probably go down because Montreal and Toronto. Well, Montreal's actually been playing fairly decent. We, of course, have our big showdown with Calgary. That's a potentially painful matchup. Saskatchewan could do us a favor by knocking off Ottawa, and Montreal bye. So go Lions, go Riders, and hopefully we can pull the upset against Calgary, who themselves have some problems. I mean, it's been a season like I'm woes Ticats with the receiver injuries, but it's been massive across the league with Darrell Walker, Jordan Kamar, or Kamar Jordan, pardon me, Eric Rogers, Manny Arsenault. These are all guys who are down, and it's a pretty harsh reality that the receiving corps has been particularly beat up this season in terms. They even put out on CFL.ca an all-injury team. And listen to the receivers here. Chris Williams, Eric Rogers, Brian Burnham, Kamar Jordan, Manny Arsenault, Darrell Walker, Jalen Saunders. You can add you can possibly add Brandon Banks to the walking wounded right now. Other positions, not so hurt. Not so hit. Not that there's not some guys. There's Joe Burnett. There's Cassius Vaughn. There's Solomon Elamini, of course, Marcus Ball, Jackson Jeffcoat, Dylan Darryl Law are all guys who are out. All big losses. Brandon Rutley as well. And, of course, Ricky Ray, perhaps the biggest injury of them all. But the receiving corps in the league have been really, really beat up. And that has created the demand for a guy like Marquay McDaniel to come in and try and right the boat with some veteran presence. So we're in for a tough one against Calgary. That's never going to be easy. But it's a winnable game. We gave them a good fight early on in the season, and we're really finding our sea legs at this point a lot more than we were at that time. So I think it's definitely a winnable game. And go Cats go. And hopefully we bring home yet another one and move this thing to 7-5. And if Saskatchewan can do us a favor, top spot in the Eastern Division. So there you go. Anyways, hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will enjoy the next game the Ticats play.